Good morning. I'm Jim Peters. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a member of the worship committee, and it's my joy to welcome one and all to the service of the Unitarian Society of New Haven. Whether you've called this place home for years or if you are visiting for the first time, know that you are welcome here. You are welcome with your questions as well as your answers, your doubts as well as your certainties, your wholeness as well as your broken places. Every part of you is welcome here. And please join us after the service for fellowship in the social hall at the back of the sanctuary. As you may well have heard, the Reverend Linda Susan Ulrich will be preaching their final service as minister of USNH on February 5th. Following the service this morning at noon right here, members of the board will be present for a listening session to allow anyone who wishes an opportunity to share thoughts and feelings. This morning, I'd like to welcome the Reverend Carol Wolf back to the USNH pulpit. Reverend Wolf was with us last October when she preached about courage. She attended Eden Seminary after serving as religious education administrator for First Unitarian Church of St. Louis for 10 years. She has ministered to 3 congregations over the course of her 14 years as an ordained UU minister and retired in 2010. We are grateful also to Jackie Trimble Shapiro for her participation in the service this morning, along with Jesse Greist, Bill Brown, Christopher Grundy, the USNH choir, Rich Stockton, and of course our charming and talented tech crew toiling away as usual in the back of the sanctuary. Some other announcements. USNH has engaged the Reverend Marian Wiesel to support our pastoral care team and the congregation. Some of you may remember her when she was USNH's associate minister in charge of pastoral care and small group ministries a number of years ago. She has already been working with our pastoral care team and with the office. She can be reached by phone in case of a pastoral care crisis or emergency. If you could text the number first and leave a message, it will ensure your call is picked up in a timely manner. That number is 203-931-5239. Of course, you can get this information through the office. Friends, the Buddy Program, a popular religious education activity for all ages, returns this year after a 2-year hiatus. Jesse Greist and other members of the Religious Education Committee will be at a table in the social hall after the service to help children and adults sign up and get more information about how we can reach across generational barriers and make meaningful connections. Now, friends, I invite all to silence your devices as we settle into worship with these words. For more than 7 decades, this beloved community has been gathered in fellowship. We come together once more this morning, both in person and remotely, to continue our work of inspiring lives of generosity and compassion, nurturing spiritual growth, and creating a more just world. Come, dear friends, let us worship together. And as Rich lights our chalice, symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, hear these words by the Reverend Scott Taylor. May the light we now kindle and the time we now share anchor us to that inner flame, that sacred center, which helps us remember who we were before the world told us who it wanted us to be. May our time together clear the way for those memories and voices and friends that lead us back home. Friends, covenant lies at the center of how Unitarian Universalists gather in community. We're united not by a particular set of beliefs, but by the promises we make about how we will be together, how we'll treat each other, and how we seek to mend relationships when we fall short of our aspirations. And remember, it's not about the words, it's about how we live them out. So I invite you to read with me the words in your order of service. We covenant together to create and nurture a culture of respect and kindness, and to engage in the spiritual and everyday practice of loving more generously. To this end, we will strive to be open, value differences, listen deeply, use kind language, speak our truths, work with conflict, and seek humor and joy.
My name is Sharon McBlain, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I invite you to rise in body, in spirit, and in all the ways that we do, and join me in singing hymn number 89 in the gray hymnal, Come My Way, My Truth, My Life.
Please be seated, my friends. Good morning. My name is Jesse Greist, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. Darkness is not the opposite of light. It is the absence of light. Death is not the opposite of life. It is the absence of life. Nonviolence is not the opposite of violence. It is the absence of violence. Perhaps in an alternate, more just universe, Martin Luther King Jr. could have been celebrating his 94th birthday today. If we here together today light a birthday candle for Martin, we might be reminded of several important lessons he helped teach this world. This candle adds light to our sanctuary, creating less darkness. King wrote that darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. The flame of a candle is beautiful and helpful, but in certain situations it can also be dangerous. If not carefully controlled, it has the potential to start a destructive fire that can burn everything around us instead of warming and illuminating. King grew up in a world where violence towards Black Americans was a daily reality. But King knew the violence around him was an uncontrolled fire. He believed that fighting violence with violence would be like adding more wood to a fire that only was interested in burning longer and longer. But Martin also felt that it was important to work against the fire of violence through removing the fuel, not through seeking its opposite. He did not tell his friends and allies to throw water on the fire, for even water can be seen as an enemy to those consumed by fire. If water is thrown on a fire, the fire does not lose its desire to burn. Martin taught us to extinguish the fire of violence by not feeding it. When he and his allies sat still as violence swirled around him and them, when he spoke of opposing evil acts but loving the people doing those evil acts, he slowly, painfully proved that only through the absence of violence can violence be extinguished. Remove the fuel and the fire shrinks until it is once again a flame of hope, of light, of celebration of birthdays, of possibility. Happy birthday, Martin. Thank you for blessing us with this lesson. Your life may be absent, but your flame lives on. I invite you to rise in body or spirit and sing the children on. The 7th and 8th graders will be joining our guest, Mubaraka Ibrahim, in our library upstairs, and the rest of the children will come with me down to the children's chapel at the end of the upstairs hallway. Let us sing together. Our roots go down, down to the earth. Our roots go down, down to the earth. Our roots go down, down to the earth. Our roots go down. Our roots go down, down to the earth. Our roots go down, down to the earth. Our roots go down, down to the earth. Our roots go down.
Friends, in this spiritual community, we remind ourselves each week that joy and sorrow are woven fine. Some of us bear burdens made lighter as others help us carry it, and some of us hold joys that shine more brightly as others reflect our delight. Our longtime member Jeremy Hill has been hospitalized since last Friday with heart failure. He's asking for your best wishes, and cards would be welcome. We're deeply sorry to announce the passing of longtime USNH member David Schaefer, who died peacefully at 91 years of age at Yale New Haven Hospital, St. Raphael's campus on January 10th, after nearly beating COVID. He will be sorely missed. You can read more about David's life in the memorial email that went out last Wednesday. Laura Patey asks that we please remember Connecticut State Representative Quentin Q. Williams, who was killed in a car crash earlier this month, and hold in your hearts his wife Carissa and mother Queen.
I would invite you at this time to take a nice, deep, cleansing breath in and let it out. Focusing on today, tomorrow, or the day after creates imbalance. Living only in the past, the future without the present, is metaphoric. A balanced life is achievable, and memories can self-sustain, but the past is the past, and the future is yet to be lived. Moving forward without regret is a lesson like an acquired taste, difficult to achieve or accept when pressure and outside influences intercede. Entitlement can be hidden on a shelf. Living for today and preparing for the future without forgetting the past, yet not wallowing in it, is a recipe for happiness.
This is the time in the service when we hold up the spiritual and practical value of generosity. The work we do here requires the support of each and all of us in whatever ways we are able. Please see the ushers as you leave your seats after the service, and please consider donating via our website, usnh.org. Your generosity, now and always, is gratefully received.
First of all, I want to thank you all for your warm welcome this morning. I told Jim I feel at home here. It's just wonderful. And I thank you, Christopher and Bill and Jesse and everyone who participated in the service. I really appreciate it, mostly Jim Peters, who is always right on top of everything and stays in touch, and it makes me feel very secure when I come. He's got it so well organized. Well, the theme of this month of centering evokes several meanings, and none of them are necessarily relatable to you-ism, because our center is not a deity or a human figure or a specific symbol of faith that we display, and it isn't at all a way of proselytizing or selling ourselves to others. Rather, it is an amorphous, non-physical, vague idea that defies definition. It can be just a feeling or a placement that may or may not exist within us. It is something we imagine or sense without having a concrete, tangible, exact location for. Right now, I want you to see yourself as exactly as you are right now, sitting squarely in a spot here in this sanctuary, with a sense of being centered in the spot you chose to sit in this morning. Now, I know this is a time of mourning and confusion for you, and I realize that may impact on your ability to hear this sermon, whose original title was "The Center Will Not Hold," which is from a documentary about Joan Didion, the author. And I expect that to be the main message, as it is so true of traumatic and disturbing times. The center will not hold essentially means that the center or core of meaning, logic, and reason is collapsing and coming apart. There is a theory of the universe that states that the universe is constantly expanding, implying that the universe is actually in a state of coming apart, spreading away from this center. Well, that's really reassuring, isn't it? And that, I think, is why we almost always have trouble finding our center, or centering, as some like to call the experience. You are in a seat, maybe not in the center of that seat, but you are feeling centered, right? You are in anticipation of an experience. You are relaxed and prepared to listen with intent and focus despite distractions. Where is your center? I am fairly certain you cannot point to it. You might be able to sense it as somewhere down there in your belly, or maybe not. Now, in Tai Chi, they talk about 3 different places of center, and they are called dantians. And there's 3 of them. There's one in the head, one in the heart, and one in the stomach. And these centers move back and forth as we breathe and as we contemplate things. Now, none of those imagined places can be pointed to or measured. Sometimes when we think of the center, we might see a ruler and a line right in the middle to which we can point as the center in order to define 2 separate sides as equals. Now, with the human body, that's not so easy. Were we to ask a surveyor to take measurements of this unusually shaped sanctuary so you could find where to sit in the exact center, it would be difficult. But perhaps some of us would be comfortable knowing just where that spot is. The idea of the center is important to some who struggle with certain brain functions that desire perfection or the need to be exact. Most of us, however, are vague about these things and have no need of exact measurements in order to feel comfortable. Just now, when I asked if you were centered, you probably experienced centering as in consolidating, or to bring something to a central point or under single control. Finding our center can be anxiety producing, as we are not familiar with those dantians of Eastern body practices and usually just revert to calling it somewhere down there. Now, the Chinese alchemy that defined these is, as I said, very vague. And we try to, when we're breathing, we try to go into the deepest one and then up to the highest one. So think about that. With three supposed dantians, head, heart, and lower abdomen, we have a choice about where to focus our centering, and that is itself perhaps maybe a little confusing. In Buddhist meditation, we examine the breath as we breathe in and out. We start at the bottom or lower dantian and bring the breath up from there to the upper dantian, to the heart, or maybe even higher. At the beginning and end of every breath, there is a minute stopping, which I consider to be the center of the breath. So it is not ever exactly in the same place, but just delicately available when there is a tiny brief place where it stops before it starts again. Something that helps me better understand this centering technique is the visualization of a pendulum as it moves back and forth, swaying from one extreme to the other until it gets closer to the center. When I'm feeling distracted or anxious, like a pendulum, my thoughts tend to teeter from side to side, which puts me in danger of a vertigo episode, which I suffer from occasionally. It is a true feeling of losing my center as I reel around and often fall, having lost all sense of physical awareness and balance. When I can relax and be calm and recognize what is happening by focusing on my breath and making a conscious effort to be still, I am able to maintain equilibrium again. I have a family heirloom in my home, which is a grandfather clock that my paternal grandfather created and brought over from Germany. Every swing of the pendulum for me acts as a type of breath when I take the time to pay attention to it and can hear the tick-tock of the clock as well. It articulates this Buddhist breathing idea for me. If you watch the pendulum swing and carefully follow its path, you will notice a minuscule stopping at each side as it swings and starts going back in the other direction. It does not stop in the middle of the arc, but swings right through it before returning the other way. I think this is what finding our center is about. It is not worrying about being just right on the spot of it, but rather moving through it as we live our lives and continue breathing in and out. One of my mentors once told me that once in a while, we have to stop and consider just where we are, between joy and sorrow, between fear and content, between love and unhappiness, in order to sit in the center as life swings around us every moment. To have many mood swings prevents us from being centered, and our busy lives do not allow us to stop and feel the comfort of centering. How to do this? As we swing through various modes and experiences, we might become uncentered and feel off balance. And that is what, to me, is true centering, finding balance in our lives, so that when we swing too far in either direction, we are able to find our way back to ourselves with ease and comfort. Balance is a crucial part of life, and especially in our way of doing religion. It is not one or the other for us, but both and all, that we have to condense down to find the essence. Then that can become our center for the moment, because it's always changing, knowing that the pendulum will soon swing the other way. And to be centered is to have faith that it will once again find where we are meant to be. Swinging on the pendulum may create fear and chaos for some, but it is a normal reaction to life's fragile edges, and motions are normal. It is when we overshoot the edges that centering becomes crucial, and to know where that center is can help us retain equilibrium. We do not want to be off balance all the time. That is why centering techniques are so important. There are a few ways to suggest that we practice in order to center ourselves when necessary. The first is to just breathe. You'll immediately feel better. The next is to sleep more and feel better tomorrow. The third is to organize for peace of mind and efficiency. Now, that reminds me of chaos. If you are living in chaos, it's very hard to be centered. My favorite is lose yourself in music. And my second favorite, never stop reading. Next, believe everything you can and look for the good in all things. Now, there are a couple other things that work that I have tried, and meditation is one of them. I lead a meditation group usually on Sunday mornings, and we have found that the centering breath is really therapeutic for many reasons. I also journal. Journaling causes you to be centered. You can't help it because it's what's coming out, and you need to write it down, and it helps you see where you are at the moment. I highly recommend journaling. And you can ask yourself questions and answer them and so forth. And then there's different kinds of breath work that you can practice in different religions and different practices. And of course, there's exercise. A lot of people tell me exercise can be very centering. I have yet to figure that out, but as you can see, I don't really exercise a whole lot. But the last one was very important to me, gratitude. I started keeping a gratitude journal many, many years ago. And without fail, before I go to sleep, I write down 5 things that I am grateful for that day. And it really condenses and brings me into focus of what my day meant and what was important and what centered me that day. Sometimes it's just a cup of tea or whatever, but it's a very important practice, and I highly recommend that as well. Now, these practices remind us that centering requires the ability to be in the moment, acknowledging that this is all there is right now, this precise still point in the turning world. Centered in the quiet of a barely perceptible stopping of breath and swing. You need to try that when you breathe. You'll feel there's this little stopping where you don't breathe, you don't move, and it moves on then to go back. Centered in the quiet of the barely perceptible stopping of breath and the swing, we come to understand balance and meaning as we settle into the contemplation of our lives. The meaning and blessings of life come about from a stopping and an awareness of the edges that limit us from side to side and from down and up of breath that informs our sense of self. To find our center is to actually not seek it, but to allow it to just remain within, to help inform our sense of self-awareness. It is always there, even when we are in turmoil. We just need to be still and allow it to present itself. I invite you to do that now for just a moment. As you breathe, find a stopping point. Now, the center will not hold. It is elusive and up to us to locate it and sit with it and try to find it again, because we rush around forgetting about balance and centering until we are surprised by a loss or pain or anxiety. These are the chances we have to remember to be calm, to let the still point, the center that holds the pendulum swing, pause for just a moment. And I invite you to do that whenever you can. So may it be.
I invite you to rise in body and in spirit. Oh, did I forget something? In all the ways that we do. Oh, and join me in singing hymn number 183 in the gray hymnal, "The Wind of Change Forever Blown."
As Rich extinguishes this chalice, please join me in the words written in your order of service or in the chat online. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
What is peace? It does not mean to be in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. It means to be in the midst of those things and still be calm in your heart.